Sometimes campaigns just fall apart. I want to talk about why and how you can fix it. Today on Greyhawk Grognard. This is a problem that is as old as the game, it seems, that campaigns just kind of fall apart. Whether it's because you can't get all your people together, as you get older, your players have kids and they have commitments and all that good stuff. That unfortunately is not a problem that I can solve here. But as far as the structure of the campaign, that I might be able to help with. So we've seen this before. I'm sure this has happened to everyone. Your campaign's going, and then it just kind of peters out. Whether that's because your characters, your players have accomplished the mission, or the story has reached its climax, or whatever. And and I think that is a problem that we see. Not so much in older editions, but it's not unknown in older editions too, because when you think about it, something like Dragonlance, there's a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and the end, and your specific goals, and once those goals are reached, the campaign is over. Okay, fine. Most old school campaigns aren't structured that way, and you don't have to be playing an old school game to structure your campaign in an old school way. And this gives a campaign a certain resiliency because it's going to be much easier for your players to transition from one thing to another and still be in the same campaign. And I think this is more of a mindset thing than it is a rules thing. As I say, you could do this with 5e, you could do this with 1e, you could do this with Call of Cthulhu, you could do this with just about anything. Top secret. This applies to just about any game. And the idea is you want to do three things. You want to have an open world structure, not it, this, and that doesn't have to be a sandbox because there's a little, I love a sandbox. I think it's a great way to organize a campaign, but it is not the only way that you can do this to have an open world structure. Because a sandbox just basically your players are given the world to roam in, and they can explore and pick up threads as they will. Whereas in an open world structure, you can still have that wide open feel, and the players are still making all the decisions about where they go and what they do. But there are more structured threads in there. They just get to choose which one they want to pull and follow through the maze. Um, and so you would have maybe three or four different things that they could do, different quests that they could undertake, and you dangle the plot threads in front of them, and they will pick one from those threads, and they will go, or they won't, and they'll just keep exploring until they find something that does pique their curiosity. You One of the good ways to organize this kind of campaign is to have location based adventures. This is what we see in the old tournament modules, G1, G2, G3, the giant modules. Those are the epitome of a location based adventure. The adventure isn't a story. The adventure is you're going to this place and you're going to accomplish this mission. Now, that mission could be given to you by an external force factor, like in the giants modules. You're hired by the local nobles to go and stop the hill giants, and then the frost giants, and then the fire giants. But it doesn't have to be a mission like that, with a defined goal. The goal could be set by the players, and it's just exploration. Hey, there's a ruined, the ruins of a wizard's castle are over there, and go explore it. That's a location-based dungeon without a mission. The mission is explore and find find out what's in there. That is perfectly acceptable, and you can have an entire campaign that lasts for years and years and years. That's all you do is your players just go from location to location to location, and you get a ton of variety because you as the DM are making great and interesting locations that are so much fun to either explore, or you have great missions that kind of intersect with each other, and you're building out your campaign that way. Hi, everybody. Please help me keep Greyhawk alive by liking this video and subscribing. It really does help. You can also become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free or at-cost copies of my Greyheim Adventures modules, and more. Thanks, and now back to the show. And part and parcel of that approach is the idea that you're giving the players all of the power to make their own decisions. There isn't a plot that the players are going to be expected to follow. The players will select from the different stories that are hanging out there that you've created, or they'll simply create their own emergent story purely by their own decisions. You are giving them they are selecting their own goals, and that gives them motivation to keep going, because by definition, if you're just following some goal that somebody else has set, you don't have nearly as much motivation as you do if you're the one who set the goals and you have skin in the game, you have agency to pursue those goals. That will make your campaign much more resilient because it's the players doing what they want to do rather than the players doing what you want them to do. Now, the third thing that will help keep your campaign from crashing is to have consequences that persist, even if you're doing location based dungeons. And you don't have to, you can have traditional stories, you just have a lot of them and the players get to pick. But if you are doing, even if you're doing a location based dungeon, there are going to be consequences. You're going to introduce new NPCs, and maybe sometimes they'll run away. Like in the old Greyhawk campaign, Gary had the dwarf Obmi, and he kept running away because he had the boots of speed and he had the hammer and stuff, so the PCs could never catch him, and he just kept popping up places, and they were like, "We got to get this dwarf." You could do the same thing. You can set up recurring villains that show up from time to time. You don't want it to be every villain is always the same one, but you can have a stable of villains that you pick and choose. You can have a rogues gallery, as it were, that you could have that, and they all have long-term grudges against the player characters, and you can really establish this long personalized history of bad guys for the PCs to pit themselves against. And it's not just that, but you can also have, if something affects the world in one game, it's going to persist in the next session, right? So if the PC, let's say you go through this multi-session arc where the PCs are help are participating in a civil war, and nobles are dying, and the king ends up being killed, and the rebellious son becomes the lord, and those political implications, they need to persist and they need to reverberate throughout the campaign, and in that way you're going to give your players a real sense of ownership, because they are making lasting impacts to the campaign, and that's something you don't get if you have like even a 20 session campaign, and then that stops, it crashes. You did it. You won the quest, and then you reset, and everything starts again. Maybe even in a whole different world, and with whole new characters. You lose that sense of continuity, and more importantly, your players lose that sense that they have a real impact on things, because they can't turn around, in the kind of game I'm talking about, they can turn back and say, remember that years ago we made sure that orc king couldn't take over the barony. That's we did that. They can have a sense of pride and ownership that they can indeed make changes to the face of the campaign, and those changes will stick, because otherwise, if the campaign's just going to end in a couple of sessions anyway, why bother? Because they're not really going to, won't have any lasting impact. It's ephemeral. So by having this persistent long-term effects of the player characters on the campaign, it gives them a real sense of ownership and a real sense of agency, and that is really important if you want to have a long-term campaign. So there we are, three handy ideas to give your players agency, because if the players have agency and the players are invested in the campaign, it's much more likely that they're going to have a much better time, and that means you're going to have a better time, and that means the campaign is going to flourish. So consider having a long-term campaign with multiple stories, with the same characters, with continuity, with impact, with agency, with player-driven goals, and an open world structure that allows them to make informed decisions to pursue those goals. And you will have a great campaign that doesn't have to end just because a story ended. Hope you like this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these topics. Please do feel free to chime in. Hope you're having a great day, and I will talk to you all later. Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day. I gotta kill a bug. Sorry about that. There was a hornet in the room, and it led me on a merry chase across the house. I had to get it. Now, I think I'll start recording again.